Hello, hello, hello. Hello, welcome back. This is Frantz Kantor here, cartoonist, illustrator, toon talker. And I'm going to do another drawing. And this is going to be interesting, this one. So I'm going to do another caricature, and I thought we might explore this man. That's right, it's Peter Cushing. No, it's not. This is a photograph of Vincent Van Gogh, which I found, and I'm quite inspired by that because, you know, this is probably one of his most iconic self-portraits, and this is a very similar bone structure and pose, etc. This is his, arguably his most famous painting, the Starry Night, and we'll talk a little bit about him. Vincent Van Gogh was born Vincent Willem van Gogh. He was a Dutch painter. He was born in 1853 and he died in 1890. He was a Dutch post-impressionist painter. He was one of the most famous and influential figures in the history of Western art. So, very sad career. Most of his art was only purchased by his brother Theo, who used to write a lot of very sensitive, very beautiful letters to. So he had he created about 2,100 artworks and 860 oil paintings, which date from the last 2 years of his life. So the periods that his work encompasses are like realism, post-impressionism, modern art, impressionism, Japanism, Clausonism, pointillism, and neo-impressionism. A couple of those I don't know, I haven't seen. Greatly influenced by Claude Monet, Paul Cézanne, Rembrandt, etc. So let's have a think and a look at his work. This is the photograph. I thought I'd work from this photograph. And these are some of his paintings, his self-portraits. Very, very cool. So he had these sort of piercing green eyes, pale eyes. That's him as a young man, probably in school still. This is the blue irises. This is a closer version of the photograph that I would be working from. So it's very, very, very lovely person. These are sketches of his. I believe this may be post-mortem sketches. And some more sketches, probably. I think these are Vincent, and that's a color version of the photograph. That's a bigger version of the Starry Night. So you can see here is, this is iconic, right? The brushstrokes, the impressionistic brushstrokes, the analysis of light and form and matter. So, just for a little heads up, I thought, reaching out here. I'll show you we'll talk a little bit about Yorick in a second, about the bone structure and things like that. And also the area of interest is going to be this zone here, this mask zone of the eyes, the nose and the mouth. Right? So that's where all of our attention is going to be. That doesn't mean we're not going to be paying attention to the rest of it, but we're going to be zeroing in on these elements. Right, so I just thought I'd work on, I love this little thumbnail. I just did a little thumbnail of his face, which I kind of liked, based on what I see as an important element is the head, the proportion of the head in relationship to the rest of the face. So the skull, the cranium is more important. Now, his skin is going to be quite interesting because it's quite tight here and he's got very prominent cheekbones. So these orbits either I don't think the orbits have changed in size, but I think the tissue around it has sort of pushed the eyes up and made the cheekbones quite prominent. Remember that the cheekbones themselves are not devoid of feature. They have muscles over the top. So it's not just bone in contact with skin. You know, you could argue that the cranium, the forehead, or the crown, the top part of the head, is more in contact with the skin than the cheekbones. There is tissue here, and it does actually create different shapes and you know, makes the cheekbones either stand out or appear higher or lower. It doesn't necessarily mean that the skull has changed. Okay, so I've done a little thumbnail sketch. One of the things in this photograph, actually we might use the other photographs, it'd be a bit clearer, is that the light's coming in from the left-hand side, which means it's going to be quite strikingly shadow lit. So if I can try to simplify this shape, it would be something like that. And the shadows are going to be on the left-hand side of the form, like so. Okay, and that's going to give us a more believable three-dimensional concept. So whenever we're putting in the details, that's what we're going to be thinking about. So I've taken this sketch, this thumbnail, and I've expanded on it a little bit better in the pencil, just a very rough pencil on the toned paper. So I'm going to be using a brown pencil. There's a couple of different versions. There's a terracotta in Tuscan red. This is a Prismacolor. I'll also be using a white Prismacolor. Now these are quite soft leads. They have good coverage, good quality. I'll also be using a polychromo, which is black. And a polychromo is also a color pencil. And this is the lead of this is good quality, but it's a bit harder than the brown pencils. And there's an assortment of brush pens and Posca markers and things like that. So let's try to see what we can do with Vincent and the Starry Night. Right, so straight away I'm presented with an issue of the head tilting. Actually, I might start with the black pencil, try to define. I've got a little bit of form which I've been able to catch with the brown pencil. So what I'm doing now with the black pencil is I'm trying to establish some clarity and contrast, right? So a lot of the details which I'm alluding to with the brown pencil, I'm able to describe in greater detail with the black. This is going to give us more contrast. So again, you know, you look for opportunities to, got a lovely bone on the nose. I should have a model of a nose, actually, just to sort of be nice to kind of refer to that. But there is a lot of structure on the nose itself. It's what you would call an aquiline feature, an aquiline nose. It's quite hooked and very noble looking. It's an ennobling feature. Right, so let's get into the this area here, which I'm going to be drawing next. Actually, I might get some, you know what might be helpful, because there is a lot of brown pigment. We might need to render that back here and there, just to clarify things. Whenever you do the white pencil over the top, you might need to burnish back some of the brown lead, because otherwise the pencil might turn pink. combination of white and brown. It's very soft lead. So the idea behind this drawing, or these drawings, is to establish a tonal, sculptural, if you will, drawing effect. Okay? So it's not just drawing line and details, you're actually drawing form. And you're thinking about an awful lot of stuff like, you know, anatomy and perspective, composition, light and shade. So a full complement of elements of art. And you're quite easy, it's quite good to use this method because you can capture a lot of elements of art with a pencil. So the elements of art that I'm talking about are, I'll list them here. One is line, and that could be the contour, the outline itself. There could be individual lines like hairs, right? Eyelashes, lines around things, lines that contain shape and form. So we usually think of art elements as having 7 in number. The first one is line. The second one is shape. Now shape is something also contained by line. It's you know, the shape of the nose, for example, is described by this black line, by this pencil line at the moment. And that's articulating and describing the shape of the nose. Yeah? So that's the second element, shape. The third element is form. Now form, I'll put in brackets 3D. Form is the concept of this shape having three-dimensional properties, in that it exists in it has spatial relationships to itself, its own elements. Ooh, what was that? And so it has, like when I'm talking about drawing something that has sculptural properties, that means that it has more formal properties. So it has elements that are described by light and shade to indicate three-dimensional volume. Okay? So that nose is now looking more three-dimensional, right? So I'm actually using the tonal variations of the pencil to create form, which is three-dimensional. The fourth one is tone. Tone is a relationship. Tone is a relationship in context. So something is light, for example, the highlights on the nose here is light only in relation to it being next to something that isn't light, that's darker or mid-tone, right? So tone is the relative scale of the painting, of the artwork, of the image, from very dark, from black to white. Okay, and it's all relative. So everything is in context. So something in you know, something light. I mean, this is light, right? But compared to the light from a light or from the sun, if you were to hold this up, it would be less luminous. So let's just put a little highlight on here and you'll see what I mean. So the highlight that I'm putting in, right, I'm increasing the tone, making the tone more, the tone of the white lighter. Okay? Right, so that's tone. The next property After tone would be maybe, you can put these in different orders, would be color. We'll talk about color. Now color is also contextual like tone, right? So you look at this and you think, well, that looks very red. But in actual fact, the drawing implement is not red, it's a terracotta, which is a brownish, it's a reddish brown. So depending on how, you know, if this was on, say, a white paper, right, it would be more reddish than it would be on the brown paper. And if it was in shadow, it would be darker still. I don't know if you can sort of pick that up. It's darker still, right? So it's not as bright in terms of hue, in terms of color intensity. So color has a contextual, depends on lighting. Now, in this pencil study, and it is a pencil study, even though it's a caricature, I'm using a brown pencil. The brown pencil is there because it's a warm tone. And flesh is a warm temperature. It has a warm temperature. And this helps the drawing look more living, like flesh. You're actually drawing something fleshy, drawing a face. And the brown pencil actually helps make it look more living, more live. The next one after that is texture. Texture is interesting because, for example, I've got a texture of the paper, right? But I've also got a texture of the thing that I'm drawing. So hair has a texture, skin has a texture. So the texture of this, the drawing of the hair is different than the drawing of the skin, the pores of the skin around the nose. So that's the texture. And the last one is space. Now space is interesting because that's also a 3D concept. The object that I'm drawing is a caricatured head, a portrait study of Vincent Van Gogh, and I've contained him within this shape, which is giving me the ability to create a sense of order or negative space around the portrait itself, around the caricature itself. So that is actually giving it a very three-dimensional concept. And just to articulate it even further, certain elements of his head are popping out over this framing device. So just by overlapping these elements, I'm creating a sense of three-dimensional space. And that's what I'm doing. That's the 7 elements. Okay, so lesson over. No, not really. There's tons of lessons. In observation is a big lesson, isn't it? So, you know, how to be motivated, continuously motivated by life, by people, by things in the environment, things that are in your imagination. It's very, very important just to keep drawing, no matter what, because, you know, we're all in the same boat. Even Vincent. So one thing that Vincent's taught us is that, and he was a brilliant painter, and, you know, almost a philosopher, but, you know, more than anything else, we really are moved by his compassion. And so, I should actually warm these tones. You see how harsh the black pencil can be sometimes. All right, so even though it's a black and white photograph, I'm trying to make decisions as to what's relevant here, what's darker and what's lighter, keeping in mind that a lot of the architecture, a lot of the anatomy is hidden from view because it's been burnt out from the by the light in the photograph. I love doing irises. Light eyes have a beautiful way of catching light, like a velvet, have a very velvety sort of quality about them. And it's great fun to draw them. I might actually take that opportunity one day soon, just to do some, just to eyes. We can sort of talk more about and have a look at how very simply you can get this textural and emotional effect of the eyes. Eyes are very important. As some people have said, they're windows. Windows into what, we might say, you know. Windows to what? The poets might say, well, they're windows to the soul. They certainly have the ability to communicate very, very powerfully. And usually, you know, they can communicate very well emotions. Some nice small, I'm detecting something. I have to make things up because the photograph is not very clear, but I'm detecting a little bit of bone structure, like, you know, the actual cheekbone. I'm also detecting quite a bit of the spider line wrinkles that are telling me quite a lot about the emotional state of Vincent. Right, let's press on. Let's see what we can do. Let's get over to the other eye. Let's sharpen it a little bit. We're going to get into the pupil. And just very lightly, it's got very, very pale eyes. Let's see if I can get this right amount of dark in here. And I said to you before, there is this muscle here, which I'm also detecting. There's this thing here, on either side of the inside of the eye. Sometimes it depends, but sometimes it's covered with a layer of fat, which makes it very sort of puffy. His face is very gaunt, and there's not a lot of fat there, but I think there's something there. There's a muscle there. We have a look at his early days. No, it's not there. So, okay, it's a very interesting face. Very interesting face indeed. What else can we do? So, as you can see, I'm zeroing in on these elements, going back to the mask idea, right? The eyes, the nose, the mouth. So I've started with the nose and the eye, and now I'm going over the other eye, and eventually go down to the mouth. That's where I'm concentrating most of my time at the moment. I don't know how long this background will take to do, so that could blitz everything in terms of how long things take to do. I know what I was going to do. I was going to take this. Sometimes you have to be careful with the white pencil. It can pick up pigment. You know, you have to look at the point, make sure that it's clean. It's a surgical instrument of great precision and design. So someone asked me, did you ever have like a full set of color pencils? Because you use color pencils. No. The The answer is no. If there were any colours that I didn't purchase, I always bought singles, but if there are any colours I didn't purchase, I borrow them from my sister. She had a full set of Derwents when we were kids. But I never liked 72 colours because you're always left with colours that no one wants. It's like the black jelly beans, you know, the aniseed. It's bitter. It's tastes like cough medicine. So, you know, I don't mind aniseed jelly beans now, of course, but when I was a kid, it was like nobody wants the aniseed jelly beans. So it's the same with colour pencils. Some colours I just did not need. I didn't use. I couldn't see a need for them. So I always tried to get single pencils as much as I could. Luckily, in Sydney there were a lot of art stores in the 60s. There's a lot of colleges, art colleges, Randwick Tech and things like that. You know, he's got a very honest. I must say, I'm quite impressed. I was always impressed by his paintings, his self-portraits, but you know, there's a level of honesty in this expression, in these photographs, that are quite charming and sad. So he kind of captures that sadness in his portraits. Very serious fellow, you know. But I thought the photograph is quite telling as well. So we've got a little bit closer now with the light and shade. We need to take that argument down into the cheek area. So down here there's obviously there are a lot of muscles over that side. I wonder if this will explain it. There we go. So you could see these lines here, these pulleys. There's sort of a split, bald nose piece of what a cartilage sits at the top, the pointy bits. And then there's a bit of cartilage, but mostly bone. And I've got a smaller skull here. This is a monkey skull, which is similar. But you can see that the nose would extend out, not on a monkey obviously, but on a human. The nose would extend out, but it's greatly aligned and supported by this bone here. Okay. It's all good and so very interesting man. Try and get some lights here coming in. Before I put the black pencil in, I thought I might just clarify a little bit of this shine that's coming up. Okay. That'll do. Okay. So I'm looking back and forth, looking at the light and shade overall, and in particular individual elements around wrinkles and things. Also the texture, right? Remember that those lines there actually exist, even though the photograph doesn't really articulate them very well. It's a little spidery creases that are going against the grain almost. Let's see if we can get this got quite prominent cheekbones. So let's try to get that enough drama. Cool. And there's a bit of spidery lines in the forehead, but you know, not too much. There's not a lot of cross purposes here. I think there's conflicts, but mainly centered around his eyes. His mind is very seems quite clear from the lines that are present in it. So there's not a lot of worry lines over there, even in the portraits. It seems quite devoid of features. So we've got the light coming in from the top, okay, so that gives you license really to go to town with the forehead, certainly in this area. Bringing in the shine. So it's not as shiny as the nose, but you know, here we go. Cool. All right, so where are we going? How are we going? We're doing all right, I think. So just get some more white here at the temples. And we're going to get in with the black pencil in a minute. I think he has red hair, so we're pretty safe to go to town with a red pencil, reddish brown pencil. Help that out a little bit. So just help the tone out a little bit, darken it, make it a bit more contrasty. It's kind of cool, like that. Let's fix up these eyes with a sharper response. So, you know, I like the portraits very much, but there's one particular painting, not Starry Night either, that stands out for me as a it's there's no other way to describe it except to say that it's a portrait of a chair. And it's one of the saddest things that I've ever seen because it refers so strongly to the occupant of the chair, to the human. It's his chair, actually. It's very sad. It's a very sad chair. So as strange as that sounds, I like the strokes are nice. Actually, I can go a little bit coarser with that in reference to his brush strokes, which are very impressionistic, aren't they? So I could probably do that. Before I do that, let's try to establish the undercarriage of the face a little bit more. It's a lot of fur. Okay, let's fix up some of this. It's nice, I'm enjoying this. Nice impressionistic stroke. Pencil's really good for articulating fur and hair and things, beards. It's very good at it because the strokes sort of approximate the hairs themselves. So far, so good. Okay, get some more shadows in here. rhyme or reason for this. It's just as you feel. You know, sometimes you complete all the brown, then all the black, then the white. Sometimes you break up the sequence and cheat a little bit to try to get a more of a formal sculptural effect as you go. Which is what I've done here. I'm finding some nice shapes here. So I quite like that haircut. I've sharpened it a little bit, but that's fine. I like the contrast between the curves and sharp strokes, sharp lines. I think that makes for an interesting drawing to have diversity. Good. Now there's a bottom lip. Some form. Almost. Let's try to help it along with a brown pencil. Cool. Right, so let's stretch across the painting now and fix this line, this contour of the outer frame. Let's do that. I love drawing old suits. You know, they're really, really distinctive, and they show a lot about the personality of the wearer, whether they're crumpled or neat, or even the fashion of the time, how they wear that fashion. Fix these little buildings a little bit. Okay, bottom line. Bottom line is line at the bottom. Fix up the ribbon. Getting closer. Okay, now I've got some decisions to make. Let's before we go into the background, we'll just fix up this little bit. Looks like it's a bit need of definition. A little bit. Okay. Give it a little bit of help. Right, so what else can we do here? We've got get the white pen out. See if we can sharpen some of these lights. That's good. All right, let's go to, what was it, the background? Oh, we were going to, yeah, okay. Let's actually, we'll look at the other background. It's a bit, got more sky, I think. There we go. Right, here we go. This is the interesting bit. I don't know how long this will take. So try and make it as quick as we can. I can't get as much movement as he did because he obviously took his time. I don't have that time, and I'm changing things a little around a little bit, but kind of get the gist of it. Okay. Forgot the church steeple. Shh. What else have I got here to play with? I think I've got a grey pencil, but I don't know. No, it's not going to be much use. It's not going to be easy to do this, but I'm going to, let's see if I can do it the other way. Go from the light to the dark first, I think. yeah, I don't know if it's not the same thing as paint, and I don't want to be there colouring it in too long. So just somehow a hint at the textural qualities of the background. Here we go. Would be helpful to have the pencil blunt, make bigger strokes, be easier to draw, and would kind of allude to a painting technique. These directional lines. So the Impressionists studied the light and shade, particularly with the aid of cameras. The Impressionists, or the Post-Impressionists, took it a little bit further, in that they wanted to really establish this sort of particle effect of light and even air itself. So it's a different sort of thing that they're after representing in their paintings than light. And this is a perfect example, actually, because it's almost like painting direction or animating wind. These clouds, these particles that swirl, that create these sort of gestures within the sky itself. That was a very important breakthrough, because now you're getting away from the representational, which was studied by the Impressionists and their use of photography, or their using cameras as study tools. And now we're getting into animating movement, so it has a very interesting effect. Might need some help. There. Rightio. Okay, so let's have a look. This is a Posca brush pen. Let's see how much mischief we can get into with this. Take that out because you have to pop the end of it. Get the paint down to the brush tip itself. There it is. And that will wet the whistle of the brush. And that'll give me the ability to create thick and thin strokes. Like so. Do a bit of feathering here and there, I guess. Okay. What else can I do? Trying to. Oh, well, I didn't intend to do that. Didn't want to do that at all. Can't really touch that. It's out of shot. Huh. There's a white dot here. See? Never mind. It'll come good one day. All right, let's go. Let's finish. I can't think of really anything more to do. It's a bit sort of patchy over there in the down here. Might work. So I might, while I'm here, I might sort of give it some of these lines a bit more body. Oops. So I'm just having I'm having a line. I'm having out the lines a little bit, thickening and thinning them to give them more contrast from the background. Fix up the little pupils. I think that will do for me. Let's try to spell his name right here. Look what I've done with this. Gogh. Or Go, depending on your school of thought. Vincent Van Gogh. Right. It's a bit patchy, but I think it works quite well. It's got loose and thin, and there is definitely some movement in the sky. Alright, so that's what I'm going to rely on. So this is Vincent, right? Or if you wish to prefer his portraits, this one. And this is my Vincent. This is Frantz Kantor saying to you, I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye-bye.